So thank you everyone for joining. Maybe we should close the door. So final session, I think, for you for the day, before the keynote. Thank you for joining. Today I am going to be talking about connecting the clouds, wedding or a funeral. Quite a dramatic title, but I thought it was necessary. The goal of this presentation is to share my experience of the past 3 to 4 years connecting different clouds of Salesforce together, mostly acquired products. And that's why I wanted to share some warnings and things to look out for when you're starting a project using these products, as they're sold connected out of the box. Yeah. I mean, you can connect them, but there's some stuff to watch out for, and hopefully at the end of the session you will have a few weapons in your arsenal to face those challenges head on. And if you still have questions afterwards, we'll be there. First, for the people who have not seen my previous session, I am Thomas. I am the head of commerce at Forward. Started out as a developer for about 9 years. Started out as a Java developer for a competitor product of Commerce Cloud for Intershop. After 6 years, switched to Demandware just during the acquisition by Salesforce. And now I quickly migrated from development to architect and then to head of commerce, where I look after about 40 developers at our company, doing knowledge sharing and making sure they have the same the same weapons I built up for the past few years, to make sure they don't run into the same walls that I have. And afterwards, I also started sharing that knowledge outside of Forward. I became an instructor for architecture for the B2C Commerce Architect certificate. So if you at one point do B2C Commerce Cloud for the people and take the architect exam and you do the training, you have a 50% chance that I will be the instructor, because there's only 2 people teaching the course in the world at the moment. I also have a blog about Commerce Cloud and also about other Commerce Cloud projects, and also actively part in Shirtforce. Unfortunately, all of my Shirtforce shirts are in the dryer, so I couldn't wear one right now. And last week I got a golden hoodie, but it's too hot to keep wearing that inside of this room, unfortunately. Thank you. So, for the people who were in the previous session, sorry, you're going to have to hear this explanation again. Commerce Cloud, there's a lot of misconceptions about what Commerce Cloud is and which products are within that range. Even if you follow Salesforce presentations, they sometimes mix up 3 different clouds in one user journey, which is quite confusing for everyone, the client, for us as a partner, and everyone in the room. So if you look at what products fall under the Commerce Cloud name, we have Salesforce Commerce Cloud, B2C Commerce Cloud, which was originally Demandware, acquired in 2016, and then rebranded. We have Salesforce B2B Commerce Cloud, the classic cloud craze, which was built on the core platform. And afterwards, they re-implemented it in Lightning. You also now have B2B2C Commerce Cloud. You might hear multiple names for that one going around. And for the headless, which was my previous presentation, a new product was acquired 2 years ago, I think now about 1.5 years ago, which is the PWA kit and managed runtime, which was Mobify, to give a solution to a headless storefront for people using B2C Commerce Cloud. So it's not available yet for B2B or B2B2C. Might be in the near future or in the longer future. It really depends on what Salesforce plans to do with the thing. But since it's a completely separate product and you could easily connect it with any system, it does make sense that they're going to use it to provide a headless storefront for all of the Commerce Cloud related products. There's also omnichannel inventory, one of the first microservice offerings within B2C Commerce Cloud and OMS, and basically any Commerce Cloud related product that's reused. It has an interface on. Oh, what's going on? Okay, let me quickly make that. Okay, there we go. it has an interface on the CRM. It looks like an application within Salesforce, but it's actually hosted externally for performance reasons. But it is included in the license for OMS and for B2C Commerce Cloud, I think also for B2B, but don't quote me on that one. And it provides all of your systems with near real-time inventory updates or information. So a very important product, since inventory is one of the challenging things, especially in retail and, well, many branches, to get real near-time inventory available. Why? I think I'm touching something on my stick. What are you doing? Let me check. I'm gonna put you away because I'm doing something weird. Okay, it's acting up. There we go. And the final one is order management, a recent addition as well towards the family of clouds within Salesforce for order management. It's what's in a name. To handle all of the processes that happen after you click on the buy button, to get all of those processes in order. So during this presentation, I am going to be talking about B2C Commerce Cloud and using some lingo that's only present within the B2C Commerce Cloud world. Like I said, it's acquired in 2016, was called Demandware and rebranded. But if you hear me talk about something called cartridges, you can look at it as an unmanaged package. It's code you upload to your server by development. And you get all of the source code and you can do whatever you want with it. You can break it, you can fix it. If there's bugs in it, you can do whatever you want. If I talk about quota limits, it's the same as the governor limits on force.com. And while you write Apex code on force.com, we write JavaScript. Now they're both based on Java, so behind the scenes everything is Java, but in B2C Commerce Cloud we're writing JavaScript code that's being real-time translated to Java. We get Java objects back in JavaScript, which has its peculiarities to say the least, but we've gotten used to it. And if you're wondering what this guy is, why it's a Rhino, it's because it uses the Rhino engine, so it's an inside joke for the people who get this, usually have worked with Demandware. Now, over the years, I think the first 3 years, not a lot of stuff happened with actually connecting B2C Commerce Cloud with all of the different products of Salesforce. But the last years, especially with new products, if you look at CDP or OMS, they have been trying to integrate it a little bit more, making it productized and supported by Salesforce support. But still there are some challenges as it's different stacks. It's completely different, even though it's both Java behind the scenes, they have a completely different stack. And yeah, getting these systems to talk nice to each other is always a challenge. Even for people within Salesforce, you have synchronization processes and those processes do not always work the way you hope they do. So that's a bit of a background of what B2C Commerce is, that there's not a confusion of this. Yeah.
I can recall, again, it was 3 years ago, that there were connectors that were specifically made.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about those. I've had a lot of fun with those, and I'm going to talk a lot about those. Don't worry. So, do not worry. That's what this presentation is about, on those fun connectors. So that's what we're going to talk about. But if you look at the what we're talking about is B2C solution. With B2C commerce, we're usually customer facing, but we're only going to look at a few of those clouds. If you're going to take the entire range of products that Salesforce has to offer, I think we can talk about a few weeks before we can let you go outside of this room. So we're going to focus on Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, and Commerce Cloud. These are the most demanded clouds that we have. I specialize within the retail sector, so this is what usually comes up when we have multiple projects going on. So that's where my main experience is, and that's what I'm going to be talking about. Now, the first question when you're connecting all of these products is, what do you want to synchronize and what do you want to do with that data? Like everyone talks about Customer 360, and of course you can have data, but if you don't do anything with that data, why do you synchronize them at all? And think of the word synchronize, because I'm going to hit on that a little bit later. because that also has its challenges. And if we look at accounts, that usually means we want to, look, that works. We want to get a 360 view of our customers, like who are they, where do they live, in some cases even who are their family members, and that's for a case at the end of the presentation, why that might be important. What are their preferences? Do they have a favorite color? Do they have, maybe for some projects, medical conditions that we need to take into account? Going from actual diseases to maybe just having to need some extra support in your shoes. The second thing that you might want to synchronize is your orders. Now, before order management, you would have to synchronize those orders from Commerce Cloud manually through a connector to get customer service and marketing and insight in what has been ordered to make some more personalized suggestions towards the client. And get insight on what are their preferences, what colors do they like, what size do they have, and actually use that to send personalized messaging and adapt the site to what they actually need instead of giving them a general view of everything. And the last one, if we're talking more marketing cloud, is subscriptions. When you opt in, you really need to be GDPR compliant, and now this is just GDPR. There's like 4, 5, 6 different versions of this. You have in California Privacy Act, for example. There's in Japan a special version of this, all of their own rules. And you need to make sure that when we're talking about subscriptions, that you are compliant in one way or another. And when synchronizing data, I'm going to say that again, synchronizing data, those things can go bad really quickly if you do not do it correctly. So, to answer your question, what does Salesforce provide to connect everything out of the box? Let's start with the Marketing Cloud connector from Commerce Cloud, a cartridge that has not been updated properly in 2-3 years. And I can tell you a lot has happened in Marketing Cloud in 2-3 years. So it's old. So the latest and greatest APIs are not being used. It might not even match with what you want to do with Marketing Cloud and how it integrates. The code itself, I've heard this from developers a lot, is quite complicated. It was built to be reusable somehow and to be extensible, but the only thing I heard is that it's complicated to work with and developers had to spend like 2-3 hours or a day to figure out how to make changes. And in most cases, and this is how Salesforce changed the narrative, is it's a starting point. That look like take a look at it, test it, and see if the use cases that it provides is enough for synchronization of that data toward Marketing Cloud, starting your journeys, etc., and managing your lists. Now, from personal experience, we built our own. So we took this as a starting point. There were a few things like generating CSV files to get your products in there and all of the information needed for Marketing Cloud to send product data into their mails. And we picked and choose, like, okay, this is okay, we'll rewrite the code that it fits what we need and check with the Marketing Cloud developers, like, is this the best thing that we can use? Like the transactional APIs that came out after this connector was built. You really need to check. If you're going to integrate B2C Commerce Cloud with Marketing Cloud, talk to Marketing Cloud people. They know their product, or at least they should know their product the best, and they will point you to the right direction on how they want to do their journeys. Because that's, in the end, you need to make sure that you adapt all of this to how you want to use it. And this was a basis to start, or a best practice. I'm not sure what the general thing behind it is, but make sure that you look at the use cases and that the Marketing Cloud, that Marketing Cloud gets the data it needs in the format that it needs, and that the journeys are started with the data that they need as well. And if you need to restart, then you need to restart. I would actually suggest this. Like I said, it's 2-3 years. They did some minor modifications, but 3 years is a long time to not do major updates to a cartridge. So that's my experience with the Marketing Cloud. I think most people, if you're starting with this, I would suggest use it as a cheat sheet. Like, how do the APIs? I think it still uses SOAP in some. And there's REST APIs available. So see what makes sense to use as a basis, but in general, I would recommend to build your own and spend the extra time, make the estimation, and make the investment to build something solid together with your marketing cloud team, that the correct APIs are called the way that they want, and the data for especially opt-ins is sent the way they want it in there. Second one, the Service Cloud connector no longer exists. Been removed, yeah, I understand you. Eradicated completely from history. Last year in August, I think they removed it from the GitHub repository for good reason. We used it for our first project. It was our first introduction towards Service Cloud. Was a fun journey. We learned a lot. Hitting a few walls is always a good way to learn how you need to connect. So was it a bad experience? Yes. But did we learn a lot? Yes. We really got to know the APIs, the ins and outs of Service Cloud.
Depends on if you're being billed.
Hmm?
Depends on who's billing who.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the connectors didn't work, and when you went to get support, they said, well,
Yeah, it's not supported.
you're a partner, you should know what you're doing. And then when you went to the person who created the connector, he said, well, from the demandware side of things, everything was perfect, but from the Service Cloud side, there were all these young kids from India who we decided would start.
So that explains the unit tests that did not check the result.
This is still included in the study material for
Yeah.
B2C architect.
I know. Unfortunately.
That's why I'm here, by the way, just to share my frustration.
Well, thank you for joining. No, so indeed, there were a lot of weird things in that connector, like the unit tests that did not check if the actual synchronization, just like did not follow best practices at all, like unit tests that did not check if it worked, just for code coverage, those kinds of things. It did weird things with queries. And that was my introduction to Apex. So this was a fun journey, but we got through it. We got it live. So, and it worked for 2-3 years. We fixed a few bugs. We found a few new ones a year after it went live, but it actually did its thing as long as people did not do weird things on the website. Like I said, if you're using this warning, if you have this installed, remove it, replace it, please. It is not a good basis, and there's a new one. It's on the next slide. I could not fit it on one slide. And personally, we built our own. So the new one didn't exist, and after the first project, we said, okay, we're going to start from scratch, build our own, build some robust systems to support it. We have extra logging. We create objects when custom object when synchronization fails, so we can report on it to make sure that people get an email if they want to when an account is stuck somehow, because it's still synchronization. So I'm gonna repeat that a few times more, and I'm gonna explain why I'm saying that, because it's important. Latest creation, B2C CRM Sync. A large improvement on what was provided with the Service Cloud connector. A lot more visual, a lot more guidance, and built by a US team. Abraham built this one. And it was really good, actually. It was supported by a lot of people. It was, I think they started 3 times over to make sure that the basis was correct, and it was built in Flow. It has a complete CLI install procedure, and I think there was even a challenge at one point that if you could install it within 15 minutes, you got a hoodie for the B2C solution architecture to just show how quickly you could set it up compared to the previous one. And actually, I think the first time I ran the CLI, it took me 20 minutes, and it was actually up and running with a sandbox. But it did not do everything that the original connector did. Address synchronization was not in there. I think it's now I think it's with Salesforce Connect, I think addresses. That they put an example in there. So I suggest you look at the features that's in there, because they really said it's a starting point. If you want more objects to synchronize, use this as an example and expand. Orders do not get synchronized, it's just accounts. No addresses, because addresses is finicky with B2C Commerce Cloud because there's no real ID available. Now we fixed that. But customers could define what the ID was, and that's a dangerous thing if a customer can change a ID. We fixed it with hooks, if people know what hooks are, that we can customizations to the API, that we exposed the UUID of the address towards the API, and then we had a unique ID that we could use for synchronization. So if you're thinking about synchronizing them, use the UUID. You can do a bit of customization and expose the UUID, which is unique across all customers, which it is not by default. And it's easier to understand. Now, still, it's a synchronization. It's synchronization of data. So when I say easier to understand, it's still complicated. There's a lot of things you need to keep in mind when connecting systems with each other, especially if they do not talk in the same way. So again, look at the use cases that you plan on using this for, and adjust where necessary. Keep it simple is, I think, a good suggestion. Don't synchronize what you don't plan on using, because they can cause headaches where headaches are not necessary.
How often is it updated?
This is being updated. There was a dead moment when Abraham left Salesforce. I was pulling it, but I think development has started again like 2-3 months ago. So there was a dead period, but it has restarted again. With the development. At least I saw GitHub a lot more activity again on updating this stuff. Like the Salesforce Connect thing was added later. Some community contributions have been added. So this one is more active than the original connector was. But it's a completely different way of working. Like it's a fully separated app. It's a lot more robust than the original connector.
If you're starting from scratch, you would go to this one.
Well, not me personally, because we built our own, so I'm going to keep using the one I built myself. But when I looked at the way that it was done in B2C CRM Sync, we basically did the same, only they did it in Flow and I did it in Apex. So the mindset was exactly the same, small differences, of course. Like Salesforce Connect we didn't think of because the licensing cost of Salesforce Connect did not always make sense for every client. But it's a robust, from my opinion, a much more robust setup than the original connector. But it's still a starting point, and that's put in there. Like you really need to test depending on your use case. Then we're gonna move on to service or CRM to marketing. You have Marketing Cloud Connect to synchronize all of your data from your CRM towards Marketing Cloud to the data extensions. It is improved quite a lot over the years. There's a trailhead now available to help you with the install, the wizard step-by-step guide, which was not available before. So there's support available. Now, talking about support, you need to battle sometimes with support. We had an issue at one point that an email was triggered like 8 times per person instead of 1, and support from Marketing Cloud was fighting, saying that it was on the CRM side, and CRM was saying that it was on the Marketing Cloud side. So that was a fun battle. But we had it like at 3 projects at the same time, so they were saying, did you change anything? It's 3 projects at the same time. It's not gonna be yes. But it's very well documented. There are some. It's still a synchronization job process behind the scenes that's synchronizing your data. So there are some peculiarities. Like if you change your data type of one of the attributes on your custom object, it just stopped working for us at one point. So there are some things that you need to stop synchronization, do some modification, and restart it again. So again, use with caution. Do it on a sandbox first. Even with Marketing Cloud, getting a sandbox is non-existent. You need to buy another business unit. So that's one of the downsides and the warnings. If you've never worked with Marketing Cloud, usually you have production. And that's not somewhere you want to test on.
I know sales, again,
Yeah.
for the partner, I know in the partner area that you have like an EDO and that sort of stuff. Did they ever consider making an EDO for Marketing Cloud?
I'm not sure. I do know if you're a Summit partner that you get some Marketing Cloud environments to play with. But
If you're a partner, you can request unofficial sandboxes and they will
yeah.
give it to you.
But you can't technically use them for a customer, so it's more for training purposes and internal demos. So
Or from the license perspective, not allowed to use them
Yeah, and they need to pay for it, unfortunately.
Well, you can negotiate.
Yeah, of course, you can always negotiate. That's part of the game. But just keep that in mind that you usually do not have as many environments as you have for the CRM part and Commerce Cloud. In Commerce Cloud, you can boot up as many sandboxes as you want. Same with CRM. For Marketing Cloud, no. Then the client needs to pay, and that's usually a blocker, at least for to test some full end-to-end scenarios.
Keeping in mind, if you do additional business units as OTAP for Marketing Cloud, you're also paying for the context sitting in that.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so from a licensing, if you're pushing 1 million records in there, you're gonna pay.
Test a few hundred. Do an empty load every day, they will never.
So that's it. I'm not going to go into too much in this one. It's a support, so you can contact support if you're running into issues. There's also documentation available now, and yeah, if you ask questions, a lot of people will probably be able to help you on the communities. Yeah, the QR code is towards the trailhead to do the install wizard for the people who are interested in it. Custom activities in Marketing Cloud. Now, none and build your own. This is towards Commerce Cloud. Now, there's probably a lot out there, but if you're talking about integration with B2C Commerce Cloud, the sky is the limit. As long as there's an API for it, you can do some custom activities that start stuff in Marketing Cloud. And there's probably some third parties. I'm not sure if anyone has knows about a custom activity that integrates with B2C Commerce Cloud or a partner company that builds stuff, but I haven't seen any, unfortunately, because there's a lot of interesting use cases that you can do from Marketing Cloud towards Commerce Cloud, like coupon generation on the fly is one of the things that we've done. For birthday, like immediately just ask Commerce Cloud, generate for me a unique coupon and give it to me, and that user can only use it. So there's a lot of interesting use cases that you can do, but you have to build your own custom applications and activities to get those things done. But the sky is really the limit when it comes to that. And I think there are a lot of more things that we can do in there. Yeah.
You're mentioning often that you build it your own.
Yeah.
Because a little bit context, how big is your team, for example? Because I think you have a few people working for a longer time on those things.
Oh, yeah. If you look at custom activities, 3 months sometimes to at least get something decent out. If we look at the connector that we built ourselves, it is a project. If we look at the amount of hours, 2 people, me and someone else who built it. So let me look in weeks, how much in total? 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 weeks, 14 weeks, 15, about 15 weeks for 2 people of development work that we had to spend on a basis, because it's a standard connector that we built for ourselves, and then we extend it towards for the customer, because they have their unique use cases, and yeah, we have mapping of the fields. But again, synchronization, I'll come to that a bit later. I need to watch the time. So, connecting the dots. If you're done B2C solution architecture, you got to see this picture of a dozen times of how the different platforms interact with each other. You have Commerce Cloud on the left. Let me check if this works again. Commerce Cloud here. You have Marketing Cloud here, and all of the Force.com platforms over here. I had to add some extra lines because they didn't update what they connected through productized connectors. But in any case, if we look at this picture, we have the API integration line that we see at the top. This is the Marketing Cloud connector that I talked about. If we see the API integration here, that's the B2C CRM sync, or the Service Cloud connector that we're talking about. And here we have, here it's basically says Marketing Cloud Connect. So those are the different products. But over time, the amount of clouds has grown. And if we look, we have CDP, which is now also integrated in somehow with B2C Commerce Cloud. So I added a line there as well. And we have the order management system, which has a synchronization system that is supported and is still being built on that, should work out of the box. But I'll leave with people who've experienced on real projects to tell me how well that has gone. It's what it is. It's a support ticket. You ask for the synchronization to be enabled. you follow a guide of 60 pages of PDF, and you map fields, and that's supposed to, yeah, and map the shipping. Yeah, and you hope for the best. You give the shipping methods the same ID, and you hope that everything synchronizes the way it does, and that you captured all of your scenarios. But yeah.
To you, I would rather have a good starting point on GitHub and build it myself than.
Yeah, so it's out of your control. But yeah, for OMS, I'm not going to go to go down that rabbit hole. Like I said, there's so many clouds available, and Loyalty Cloud you could also pull into the mix, which probably also has some integrations here and there, but we'll leave those out of the picture. Now, synchronization. I'm gonna come back to this. Why do I keep you? Does anyone dare to answer why I keep talking about synchronization? What's the dangerous thing about synchronization? Indeed, I pressed the button again. There we go. Indeed, synchronization. You're having three systems talking to each other, actually copying the data between each other. And that's with opt-ins, for example, I gave the biggest warning. If that synchronization stops for an hour or so, you have desynchronized systems. For example, there's a maintenance on the CRM. Commerce doesn't have a maintenance, Marketing Cloud doesn't have a maintenance, but they're still trying to send updates. People don't stop working on the website while Service Cloud is in maintenance, or vice versa. It doesn't stop, but these systems get desynchronized, and that's when you need to think about backups. You need to capture what is desynchronized and make sure they get synchronized as soon as possible, because if you do not do that, you're going to end up with, let's take an opt-in, for example. CRM goes down. Someone opts in to your Marketing Cloud. Opt-in true, opt-in false, opt-in true, for example. This one is out of sync. It says you're not opt-in, but the other two say you are. If you do not synchronize these correctly and a service agent updates the record, it might trigger an entire update of that account if you build it incorrectly to those two systems, and suddenly they are opt-out there while they were actually opted in. Or vice versa, even worse, because an opt-out is not as dangerous in GDPR as an opt-in. You could have the reverse, that you're opting in people again who actually did not want to be opt-in, and that's when GDPR becomes a real dangerous business. So that's why you need to really think about robustness to get these systems synchronized as soon as possible, or even not synchronize at all. Choose a single point of truth and use real-time APIs rather than synchronizing those fields. You don't need to synchronize everything. It makes sense for a few fields. Like if you look at Commerce Cloud for customer groups, you need attributes to be on the profile to segment. So you need to synchronize. But opt-ins, are you going to segment on the opt-in? Probably, maybe, but usually you can use something else to segment on. So fields that do not make sense to synchronize, get them real-time from the source. If it does not impose performance issues, like if you have to do it on every page, yeah, then in Commerce Cloud and it slows down the page by half a second, then maybe it doesn't make sense to do it real-time. But really think about certain fields, like opt-ins is the best example. Choose your system of truth and have all the other systems contact and update that system to make sure there's only one place. And if that system is down, show an error message. Ask the people to try again later. It's unfortunate, but if the system is down, have hope they come back later. It's a choice you need to make, of course, but it's an important choice that you need to make when synchronizing data, because fixing desynchronization is not a fun job, especially if we're talking about thousands, hundreds of thousands of records that might not be in sync, and figuring out what is the point of truth. That's really messy business, because you do not want to make that mistake. So that's why you really need to think about it's copying data. All of those connectors that I'm talking about, they're actually just copying the data across, and if it's not copied correctly, then yeah, you're going to have, and the longer it takes for you to find out, the more work you're going to have to fix it. Yeah.
I also recall that there was a lot of discussion, like business discussion, around the use of a guest login as opposed to a known login, and then how later, if that guest login made themselves known,
Mm-hmm.
and that was, again, this is 3 years ago, that there was a lot of discussion in terms of he originally was in Commerce Cloud as a guest, make
Mhm.
yourself known and how that would affect. Does that also have any effect on the synchronization from your side, or it will do the same?
Well, the advantage is you have control from a Commerce Cloud point and how you synchronize. Now, if you have anonymous data in Commerce Cloud, usually the email, if you're talking about anonymous orders,
Yes.
yeah. So you have the email. So you can technically link them, but you want to show the person in the, so we've done that on a project, but we mark them as anonymous, and in the My Account, we do not load those orders. So even though the customer service knows that it was actually that person, you don't actually, you're not 100% sure.
So there's a block on it because it's anonymous. You have an email, you block the movement to
Yeah.
the GDPR aspect of it.
Yeah, but also for deletion, we need to know that it was that person that we delete all of that information. So we link it if we, because email is the only thing that we can use, but it's not reliable. Email is, so that's why we use it with caution. Because yeah, it might be the wife using the email from the husband, or vice versa, or the grandmother, or yeah, whoever. But customer service does like to see that information, and from a GDPR standpoint, it's easier to do a delete all if or anonymize if those are linked as well. But those are things check with legal, especially can you do it, is it allowed, and in which countries you operate, because legal-wise you need to watch out what you do depending on which country. Second slide, IDs. Since there are 3 different products, you need to watch out what you use as your main identifier. And we're going to go back to the original connectors. Marketing Cloud, I think, used the email as the primary key. The Service Cloud connector, oh yeah, person accounts. The connector used person accounts. So you have quite a fun stuff with contact ID and account ID. The Service Cloud connector used the account ID, while technically Marketing Cloud Connect uses the contact ID. So remake that if you have all 3. Use the contact ID. That's going to be the safest bet. Do not use what they did in the connector. If you have email in Marketing Cloud, you have the contact. I mean, if you need to do an ID migration, now I'm not a Marketing Cloud consultant, I'm not the expert, but I've heard that ID migrations in Marketing Cloud are a fun business. Yeah, I'm lying. So I've heard the stories that it's not a fun process to do. So make sure you have your IDs sorted out at the start of a project, and you make sure that those emails do not make their way into the primary key within Marketing Cloud. Because you really, if you want a customer 360 view, you want a contact ID if you have all 3 clouds. Now, of course, if you remove one of these from the equation, like if you remove Service Cloud from this, then you need to decide which ID you're going to use. Probably maybe the customer number or the customer ID from Commerce Cloud, but don't use the email. That's, I think that's the safest bet that you can have, that you do not use the email. If anyone wants to contradict, now's your time. But choosing your ID is very important to make sure synchronization between the data is correct, and you do not I really need to stop pressing that button. Go back. How do I go back to? Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna leave you like this.
Sorry, just go back to that one before. You have a customer number with the contact, and in the middle portion of it, but there are situations that before that they've ordered that's not available.
Yeah, so if we're talking about anonymous orders, if you synchronize, yeah, so that's why email is still used for matching. Also with order management, synchronization email is still used at a point to create accounts and linking them. So then you only have email to go by, and that's also dangerous business, but it's the only way to link. Unfortunately, I'm gonna see if I can get it back up. And, this didn't happen the last time. Let's see again from current. It's big again. There we go. It's big again. Any questions, remarks anyone still has about? Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned that you have, you do it yourself, build a connector yourself.
Yeah.
The given one isn't too great.
Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned now that synchronization is tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Have you also been thinking about solving that with a master data solution and bringing everything in one system and then that orchestrates the sync?
Yeah, so we modified the connector that actually the CRM is in charge. So it decides most of the synchronization rules. So we built a system where Commerce Cloud, with when updates actually just pings Service Cloud saying, hey, we've got an update. I don't care what you do with it. You decide if you want to pull in the data or not, and then make that the orchestrator to make sure that the CRM is actually in charge of, which makes sense. At least in my opinion, makes sense that that it decides. Because in the meanwhile, if something else happens, yeah, you need to make sure that it gets updated correctly. Now, of course, if you have MuleSoft in the middle, then the entire story changes, but not everyone gets a MuleSoft into their projects, and then you can have that as an orchestration layer to make sure that the synchronization happens and you don't have to use the connectors technically.
I was going into that direction. Also, I could connect queues and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
out of sync.
Yeah, indeed. So if you have MuleSoft, the entire another orchestration layer, and you work out an architecture, and the point-to-point completely change. The narrative completely changes. But I'm not everyone gets the orchestration layer sold. So that's why I'm taking this the hardest hardest point of integration in this presentation. And I'm not such an expert on the MuleSoft side. And I'm never gonna be an expert, but I'm learning on what the connectors are and what it can do and what it can't do. But I've heard that it can do a lot. Yeah, so warnings, I think I mentioned most of the things already. Extend the connectors. It is a starting point. It is not out of the box, ready for all of your use cases. And yeah, same with Marketing Cloud. If it makes sense to connect Marketing Cloud for some use cases directly to Commerce Cloud or through MuleSoft or some other system, you can build custom applications and activities in Marketing Cloud to make the life of your marketers a lot easier. Keep it simple. Do not synchronize what you don't need to synchronize. Do it real time if it makes sense. And do not do more than the client is asking or makes sense in your application. Keep it simple. And keep an eye on the ecosystem, because a lot is changing. Like if the B2C CRM Sync, if you weren't watching the news, you wouldn't know that a new connector was out that did synchronization a lot better than what was provided before, that it was removed. So yeah, stay in the loop. So a few lessons learned. Data migration, Commerce Cloud talks in XML. CRM, Marketing Cloud talks in JSON, so keep that in mind. They talk different languages, and if you do migrations of 1 million records, do them in the correct order. That makes sense. If you're already live with one project or not, those need to be linked somehow, and you need to do testing to make sure that all of that stuff is linked correctly. You need to have a good start, because if your start is not good, if you're greenfield, not an issue. But if you already have like 2 million records in the CRM, or you already have Commerce Cloud but nothing in the CRM, yeah, you need to migrate that data correctly and set all of your information correct to set up that synchronization. Use the contact ID if you have all three. Watch the governor limits. There's a limit in API calls. You have quota limits that you need to worry about, so watch them. Yeah, 8 in the storefront. So what we've noticed, if you take service, marketing, and some other integrations, you're going to hit 8 quite. If you want to do real time, 8 API calls. You're going to hit per request. Per request. So that's pretty low if you have a lot of real-time integrations. So that's why you need to watch. Especially with some new additions to the ecosystem, you can hit that pretty quickly because you have authorization, you have tokens that you need to store. So best case, you have like 3, but if you need to authorize each service, then you double the amount of requesting, you're going to hit 8 pretty quickly. So that's something to watch out for. Always take the worst case scenario of amount of API calls to make sure that you don't hit the quota limit, because then like 1 or 2 every hour is not going to get synchronized because the token expired and you had to do an extra API call. No, Commerce Cloud does not have, on the Open Commerce API doesn't have any limits. The new headless APIs do have rate limits, but they're pretty okay. It's like for management 200 per minute, or for products. I'm not sure for customers, but I thought it was 1,000. Not sure. But you can use the Open Commerce API, which does not have a limit. There is one unofficial, like counts towards your storefront request, and there's something in the contract with that, but not really something to worry about too much. Oh, 5 minutes, damn it. Storage, yeah, that's also an important one. If you're using Marketing Cloud and you're syncing over your emails for customer service, storage is gonna be hell. So set up a cleaning mechanism to remove old emails from your CRM. It's fun to see all of your marketing emails and all of the contact points in Service Cloud, but it's gonna eat your storage like for breakfast. And also, in the original connection, it was person accounts. That doubles the amount of storage you need for accounts. So that eats up your storage as well quite quickly, and you're gonna need some new, gonna add some licenses for that. Robustness, yeah, of course, if synchronization fails, have backup system in place to make sure that all of that desynchronized data gets synchronized as soon as possible. Maybe a backup job every 5 minutes that checks if everything is okay, if something is desynchronized. But yeah, and also have something manual in place that if something is really stuck, someone knows, and it doesn't take 2 months to figure out that it's stuck.
Found out the backup situation for Marketing Cloud?
No, I'm not not yet. Sorry, I'll have to talk to our head of marketing if he has ideas. I don't have too much time left, so I'm gonna talk about a use case. I was hoping to demo this one, but I'll quickly skip to the movie maybe on what we did at a customer. Yeah, it's my daughter, on a foot scan, which is connected to Service Cloud, which synchronizes, creates an account on Commerce Cloud and sends out a marketing email. So it's a very interconnected thing, but I'll see if it starts. It's 2 minutes, so. That's And there it goes again. Oh, it stopped. Okay.
It wasn't the button.
No, no, apparently not. Okay, it's weird. Can it continue? Yeah, can it continue? Okay, unfortunately it stopped. No. And we only have 1 minute left. So I'll continue what is actually the connection, really quickly go back. So the idea is we have the physical stores connected to Service Cloud. You have a foot scan, which takes your foot measurements, talks to the CRM, stores your foot size, synchronizes that to Commerce Cloud, sends it to Marketing Cloud to start your onboarding into the customer base. Says, hello, you visited our store. Here's your welcome mail. You have an online account. Please set your password. You can use that foot scan to filter on your web shop, get a personalized experience. It pre-filters on your foot size if you have extra padding needed in your shoes. So it's all interconnected. And the Revolt Club was mainly for kids to get a fun journey, to get their feet scanned, and for parents to more easily get the shoes that fit their child for the longest period possible. And of course, Service had all of the information available to them. They could see the family members, they could see the size, they could tell them, oh yeah, you only scanned like 4 months ago, it's not going to be correct anymore. Please visit the store again to rescan, and we'll use that to give you recommendations on your shoes. So if you connect the clouds together, you can create a lot of personalized experiences for people and really onboard them into the entire ecosystem of a brand. Not just on the physical store, on the online, but also vice versa. Push people from online maybe to the physical store to get their scan, and once they get their scan, push them to go online and actually use that data correctly to have a better experience and an easier way to get that order done. So I think I'm done. Time's up. So thank you.